Welcome to the Node API Node add-on. Welcome to the Node.js Node add-on API meeting for February 17th, 2023. We'll follow our standard approach of looking at what we have tagged for milestone 11. Before we do that, do we have any news or announcements that people would like to share? If not, okay, I will share my screen and go into the list here. Okay, so top of the order is drive towards full coverage. Jack, is there anything you want to discuss on that one?
Nothing. I still have to address some of the comments I made in the PR, but I believe 1269 should be ready.
Okay, so there's a few that if people can review, we can then get landed.
Yeah, and yeah, sorry. I think PR 1269 should be good to go. If I'm gonna take a look.
So basically this one, right?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Sounds good. Right, so you took that out, right? Okay, so I will add my, since I asked, I will add the put there, and so just a matter of whoever's time to get to land that one first, that would be great.
Awesome, thank you.
And then any of the others that are worth discussing or mentioning?
I think that's good for this week. Yeah, didn't get much time this week.
Sounds good. Add list of non-C language bindings to Node.js doc. Just
the person who submitted the WebAssembly integration has submitted a PR to the API stable node to add their runtime to the list of our document. Yeah, this one.
right, this one. Okay, so this is like, yeah. Okay, so that one makes sense to, I think it made more sense to go here, right, than in the other place.
Yeah.
Any discussion? Should I just land this now?
It's a very simple change, so if everybody is okay with it, we can land it now.
I have nothing against it.
Yeah. So I'll just push the button. Might as well close that out. Okay. We were, sorry, I'm just now getting back. So on this one, though, I think we're still waiting for the link to basically still a little bit more work to close this out, right? But we don't have Nick here for an update, so we'll just leave it for now. I haven't done the debug testing, stale issues. Let's take a quick look there. This one I know Nick was going to take a look at. Not sure if he's had a chance, but I don't think so yet. This one, I know there was some back and forth and discussion. Okay, so I don't think there's necessarily anything for us to discuss on that one. Back to here. The next couple are based on the runtime semantics. This one is probably still open. Waiting. So go ahead.
Yeah, I had a update on the PR of the documentation change. It's in the core.
Right. Yeah, let me
see what the number.
Actually, that's the label.
The PR number is 4 59 and 3. Yeah. This is one of it. It's a follow-up PR.
Right. Why am I not? I'm not obviously not searching. Okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna put that label. Oh no, label API, and then that should hopefully. So sorry, you said it was for
It's the first one, actually.
the first one. Okay.
It's
Right.
a follow-up PR to verify that the cleanup hooks are actually invoked before the object finalizer, so
Okay.
that we can assert in the documentation that this behavior is coded in our code base,
Okay.
and it will not easily be changed.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so we should land this, get this one landed, reviewed and landed, and then that unlocks the change to the documentation, says it happens specifically in this order.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's for a request from the original documentation review.
Right.
You can get back to the specifically the person asked that the semantics on the async cleanup hooks to be invoked before the object finalizer at shutdown, and the object finalizer should be invoked after the async cleanup hook is complete. So that's why we need a test to verify it, since there is an async stuff in here and it can be complicated.
Okay. And is it because, like, the only question I'd have is, like, are we restricting ourselves by committing to something that might be hard to keep working in the future?
Actually, it's very simple implementation, since we are keeping the environment. We are keeping the Node API environment alive by the ref counting, and when the async cleanup hook is not complete, which is mean the API remove async cleanup hook is not code, the ref count will not be decremented to 0, so the API environment will not be destructed and the finalizers are not invoked. So it's a very simple implementation regarding our code base, but it's valuable to ensure no callbacks are invoked outside the lifetime of the API environment.
So it's like completely within our control. Nothing in V8 changing should affect this, and so therefore we're making sure that things happen in an order which makes sense just on our side.
There is no dependencies on V8 semantics.
Okay, no, that sounds good then. Like, as long as that was my only thing, is there like something in V8 that might affect this in the future, and it sounds like not. So yeah, making it more specific and then testing that it happens the way we expect it to makes tons of sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good. So basically the next, if the ask is people to go review this PR, get this landed, and then you can update the text to basically say that that's the way that it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. And this one, so anything on any of the others that we should talk about? I think the feature bits and semantics, you'd sent out some requests to some of the other runtimes. Have you heard anything back?
Not yet, but I believe we can go forward with Vladimir's PR on promoting the magic symbol lookups, since that PR doesn't change the fact how we load add-ons, but promote one of the approach. So I believe we should go forward with that PR.
Right, that's which one?
Yeah,
This one, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've looked once or twice, and maybe there was is it completely like this was the last thing I remember this, and I think
Yeah.
well, I mean you're going to take a look at that. I'm not sure if you've had a chance yet or not. So
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have much time this last week, but I briefly looked at the morning. So technically, what happens like we have apparently different API for embedders, and this API effectively, it's again not pool one, like it's not something which we are asking node.js Explorer inside of DLL and load this by symbol, but instead we giving something to node.js to register it. And if we see for node modules, they do have currently there are two functions. One of them pretty much kind of they push instruct, and another one they're given this symbol. And if you look for node API counterpart, we only have the one we given struct, but we don't have one which given symbol. So technically speaking, what we can do, we can introduce new APIs there. Which gives symbol only. But when the question becomes as a kind of next PR, we would like to have this version of Node API be there. Does it mean that this new API needs to also get this version? It's like becoming like chicken and egg problem, because this PR
is that new API for Node add-on modules, for Node API modules, or for
it's embedders API. So technically there are set of APIs I was not aware of which embedders can use. And my understanding that if you inside of embedding environment and you have your module to be part of your application apparently, not a part of separate DLL, like most of our modules you can register them inside. So we have some kind of linked module, what's it called?
Yep.
And currently, if you would like to have this link modules for kind of our NAPI, we pass in there like our NAPI module struct. So, and the question was, do we want to retire this API as well in favor of the one which would send just this callback function?
Right. I think the answer is yes, right? Like you should be able to through that embedder API, we don't want to say, well, if you're going to do Node API stuff, use the struct for this one and the symbol for something else.
Right. But I guess my question in this context, if we add this new API, which is supposed to retire the old one, which you struct, the question, well, what parameters to pass? Because in future, we plan to have this version to be implemented. Should we have this API to have this version inside? But version comes as the next PR.
Right. So you're really saying, do we want to introduce an API without the version when immediately after it, we're going to add a new one that adds the version, right?
Yes, yes.
I guess I'd be tempted for the add it with it, but documented as like this currently doesn't do anything, but will in the future kind of thing. I don't know if that helps versus adding.
Actually, I'm thinking that our embedded APIs are C++ API, and there are no API stable guarantees. Although we should strive to keep the API stable, but I believe adding a new parameter with default values should fit in the stable API stable guarantees for embedders, since they don't need to change any code.
Yeah, I think that agreed. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I believe in this PR we can add a function that add a register function to accept the initializer for the add-on, and in the follow-up PR for the versions runtime version semantics, we can add a new parameter which would default to null pointer for the version function. So embedders don't need to change any code, but if they would like to set the version for the add-on, they can pass the version function to the register function.
Okay, so you think will not break any kind of ABI compatibility if we add our PR with a version parameter?
Yeah, I believe as long as we keep the add-on working without any code changes, then the ABI guarantees are still, we can still keep the ABI guarantees. And for the embedded APIs, I don't think there is any ABI guarantees, but we are strive to keep API stable, but we can introduce new default parameters.
Or we can just simply have like another overload. So yeah, either default parameter or another overload. So technically, it's right. We may not break anything there. And another kind of question I have about this API is, and I looked on this Node API. Can we just open this file? It will be probably easy.
Node API.
Just let me tell you what.
Or do you want me to open in the PR or in the
No, like open this
source
embedder.
Okay, so which file is it in?
Just give me a second. Just looking at my computer. It's inside of environment. I guess it's environment. Okay. No, sorry, it's node.h.
Okay.
Node.h.
Right.
And if you go to line 1069, 1069.
Right. Okay. I'll drag instead of one at a time. Okay. So right. So here we are, 1069.
Oops. It's node.h. 1070.
Maybe a different version I have, like I'm in the main branch.
Yeah, maybe I node.h.
What's the name of the function?
Add linked binding.
Sorry, what was that? It was add
linked binding.
All one word? Okay,
yes,
there we go.
Oh wow,
yeah.
It moves so much. Okay, I have so outdated version. Okay, yeah, you see, like we have a first function. It's from node 1, which registers node module, and we have analogous next one comes with linked bindings for an API module.
Yep.
But then it seems like lately Node added this another overload for a link binding, which uses this context-aware functions. Like probably at some point, then Node start to have this context-aware registration.
Right.
So modules which can be bound to specific context. At exactly the same time, with symbol-based registration appeared, and they have added this new function called which uses add-on context register function. And as we see, like an API function is missing clearly here. But what's interesting, if you look on this API they added, they have an additional parameter called prev, some kind of, I assume, some kind of private data which you can pass along to this registration, and then with kind of callback you pass in, it also has this parameter. It seems like they have this ability for this function, this registration function, to pass some user data. So the user can register it, and then this data can be passed inside of this function, and this function is called.
Right. Yep.
And a question, this is my second question, like, should we also have something like this for Node API? Because currently our callback does not have anything like this parameter. It does not accept this private data, if you like.
Yeah, I think like my first, it's like, do things really even need to be different between, so this link binding would support a non-node API add-on, right?
Right.
I guess it's like I think they should be like, I bet you there's some reasons, but like it's almost like, why do you need to, maybe you need to tell it whether it's a node API module or not, but otherwise it should be pretty much the same. Right? Because in the end, you're basically building the same thing. The things that I guess get passed into the module are different, but so like if I understood, I don't know why they have this extra private data, but it does seem like something that, you know, could be useful for us as well. Because in both cases, they must use this a symbol, right? Like in both cases, that add link binding where it's specifying the register function, that's
right. So when this register function, which is specifying here, like it has 4 parameters. First 3 parameters is about module, whatever exports and context, and the 4th parameter is actually, it's exactly the same void star brief.
right.
So what I understand happens for the node modules with private data, which developer can during registration can pass in. This private data can come back. So imagine they have some kind of C++ class in their code, which has some additional data for their module. And they can pass pointer to this class as a this parameter during this link binding. And then this callback function is called, they can get back to their own class and use all the different information they need.
My very, very naive question is, why can't we just have add link binding work for Node API modules?
Because I mean, you think you're asking about exactly the same function, right?
Yeah, I suspect there's like a good reason that I just don't have the context to understand right this second, but like it's an add-on module, whether you've written in Node API, Node add-on API, or you've written it as not, you know, with NaN or whatever. Ideally, when you're like doing this kind of thing, saying let's use the thing, you shouldn't have to care about that, right? It's so that may be idealized, but I'm wondering, like, you know, instead of having a copy of this function, is it possible that that function be modified to somehow know, okay, I can tell from what you're telling me whether it's one or the other, and then just do the right thing?
I guess main reason that this callback receives V8 parameters. So technically, when we talk about module, we're talking about exports and context. It's all V8 local kind of appropriate V8 stuff. It's not ABI. It's not Node ABI safe structs.
Right. So, but like this add-on context register function gets that? Is that it gets the V8 parameters?
Yes. So
okay. So that makes some sense to me. Like, I guess in the regular case, we dynamically look up and we find a symbol of a particular name. We know it's Node add-on API. If we get a different symbol, we know it's a non-Node add-on API, and then, you know, basically that symbol, therefore that tells us what signature we should use, right? And in here, we're saying, okay, we're not loading a dynamic library, so we have no symbol to look for. We're just giving you that function directly. So, okay, so in that context, it really needs to be a different signature. And I would be tempted. Yeah, I see your question now. It's like, well, this extra info, is it useful for Node add-on API as well, right?
Right. To me, it sounds useful, and if you like, we do have this capability with our current NAPI module, because NAPI module struct, which we have today, they do have additional fields.
Right.
Oh, actually, but in the end, yes, sorry, but in the end of the day, when we call this callback, we don't pass this private data.
Yeah, the API add-on register function only has two parameters, one for the environment and one for the export object. So it's different from the node add-on register function. We didn't pass the private data.
We could though, right? Is there any reason why we?
That would be a function signature change. And
Right, we'd have to do it like, okay, now you could name your like we look for two signatures, one which is one, in which case it has the data, one which is another that doesn't have the data, right? Like,
yeah, it could be.
if we think that might make sense, we could add like an add link binding, which had that, but we could document it as like currently that private data doesn't get passed on to your add-on. Right. Or I guess like I wouldn't advocate that we pull the string too far, right? Like we haven't needed it so far, so let's not complicate this PR by adding in something to the existing signature just so that we can have it look the same. But then it comes down to like, does it make any sense to actually have a signature that has it? Or maybe we should just leave it out, and if we ever wanted to add it, we would add a new signature that actually has it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Adding a new upload once we actually posting the private data would be good, since we currently didn't use the private data.
So maybe that answers your question. Let's leave it out for now, and
Okay.
we needed to change the signature later on, we could do that.
Okay, I'll just add kind of simplest implementation, which kind of shows that people can just use callback functions, like symbol registration function here, because we're clearly missing among these overloads today. And in future, if we ever need to have additional features, we can just add more overloads. It's not a big deal.
Right, and even like in this one, like Legendicast says, like we try and keep API stability, but it's like the embedded one is really like, because it's C++, it's not friendly to like, hey, I'm compiled as a DLL, I'm just going to link against it. So it's mostly a recompile thing anyway. So adding a default, like we could take the existing signature and add the new parameter with a default, and we're probably good.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, well, let me do it, and should be.
Okay,
I'll try to do it this weekend.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So let's get back to the stale issues. Okay. So I think we've talked through those now. Let's go check for memory leaks. I don't think there's anything new on that one. Kevin was going to take a look, but Kevin isn't here today for an update. We can then, okay, so getting contacts for the Node API ones. So I think Legendicast looks like, or sorry, Jinzong, you look like you had thought a little bit about this.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we currently have three approaches to allow people discussing online. Specifically, you mentioned that we can create a GitHub team so that we can mention the group on issues or PRs. But however, I'm thinking that adding a person to a GitHub team requires additional membership to the organization, and it implies. I'm not sure how the policy is to adding a person that is not working on the node.js.
We do that quite often. I don't think that would be a blocker. I think we would just open a admin issue saying, hey, here, this is the reason, here's the people we're going to add.
Yeah,
This is maybe an interesting case though, where it's like we're adding people from other runtimes. But I think by default, like we can just open an issue and see if anybody's would complain, and I think the answer would likely be no.
Okay, so if the policy or allows or no people are complaining on this, then this might be the most straightforward one. And the other one, what I'm thinking that is a mailing list, because it is very easy to join and we don't need to perform any onboarding process for any implementers, so they can join themselves. So, and they can watch the history of our discussion. And the last one is the OpenJS Slack channel, which I reached out to, let's say, the M API, I suppose, the WebAssembly implementation. They also says they are hard to get on Slack, since their network is limited.
Right. Okay. I think let's try for the GitHub team to start with. The only challenge with that one, I think, is like people get so many notifications that we often find cases where we have teams, we do an app mention, we get like silence because there's like, I know when I look at my notifications, I only look at them like a couple times a week. I try and clear the backlog, but there's like 800 of them, right? So things can easily be lost.
Yeah, that's right. GitHub notifications on the organization is very noisy, kind of.
It's almost like, you know, a combination of like the GitHub team and a Slack channel might be nice. But if that's going to be hard versus the Google Groups.
May I propose fourth alternative? What about Discord channel?
Do we have an official Node.js Discord server?
No.
Oh, okay.
We've had everybody has like, there's like IRC, there's like 5 of them, and we never could agree, but de facto Slack has kind of become the one that we have an official Slack in OpenJS, and that's what everything is sort of trending towards.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we start by setting up the GitHub team, and then I'm like, I would have said the Slack channel is nice because we've already got that going, but if like nobody can join it,
yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Do you want to open an issue in the admin repo just saying like, hey, here's the name of the new team we want to create, here's the people we would add?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, we already talked about what's new. So, okay, so let's now take a look at the actual issues in so I think this one's still draft. Most of these are tests. So this one, if there's anything worth discussing.
Yeah, I just replied in the thread.
Yep.
The reason we have 2 template for the new and copy is that the finalizers must distinguish if they can accept additional hint parameter. So
right.
If they didn't, if they define their if the user define their finalizer to only accept 2 parameters, they the hint, we have to distinguish this overload so that we will not call the finalizer with a 3rd parameter hint. And
Okay.
this is already we have several occurrences in our code base already for such kind of finalized variants.
Right. Okay. So it's because of our past definitions versus, having a default hint, void star. But yeah, okay. I got it, I think. So, okay. So that one's ready to be landed.
Default value, since this new and copy a default hint value, but the problem is the signature of the finalizers. So if the finalizers are defined 2 parameters, we cannot call the finalizer with 3 parameters with the hint.
Right. Right. It's because you're right. We've already got some definitions which basically bind our, it's an existing definition, not something we're adding in here, which limits us.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, got it. Okay. So that one's ready to be landed. Good. Issues. I don't know if I haven't had a chance to look at some of these new ones. I don't know if there's any new ones or ones that people think we should call out to discuss. Okay, I will flip over to, I think here we might have a list. Right. So then similar question here, if there's any particular ones that are worth discussing. You already mentioned 46692. We talked about this one.
Do we need to talk about the second one?
Right.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with VC PKG, so probably I'm not sure if people in the room are familiar with this package manager.
Yeah, I played a bit with it before. So technically, it's a package manager created by Microsoft, and the idea is very simple. We have a lot of different C++ packages all over the place, and what they've done, they have a kind of global catalog of all these different plugins, and the way it works, the team either just simply have minimal code to pull this package if it's already friendly for CMake installation and stuff, but otherwise they actually can write some code which patches a bit CMake build systems, so make sure it's all well done and works. And typical use case scenario, you enlist into VCPKG repo, you configure which packages you would like to use, and then which platform you target, and they build locally on your machine some special pre-built libraries and stuff which you can start using in your applications almost immediately. It's a very nice experience. And in all, I would say every single C++ conference, people talking actually about C++ missing some package manager, like what we have in node.js, we have no npm, and we're missing something for this in C++. And Jan Strausrup saying it's probably will be the best thing for C++ as a community to have it. So VCPKG is one of the kind of mostly common used package managers, which is cross-platform. Even from Microsoft, even it has VC, but in fact it's cross-platform and stuff. There's another one called Conan, but it's more relying on Python build system, whereas here's just pure CMake. And there are other.
Did you say it's cross-platform? Like it works on non-Windows platforms too?
Yes, it works on Linux, it works on Macs, and it works everywhere. It's not about Microsoft platforms.
Okay. I guess I trust your judgment onto whether this, is something we should add into the list there along with the others or not.
Sorry, I didn't see responses from developers. Again, I don't have messages for some reason. it's strange. I have a notification from other repos, but not from node.js. I need to probably fix something. But yeah, my question was like, yeah, we can mention in our documentation over there, but to me it feels a bit odd in terms of we don't mention other ways how we built. Like we don't even say much about Jeep over there, pre-built, do we? In our documentation.
Yeah, well, let's see what we've got. Bill, well, we've got Node.js, CMake.js, and vPackage.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because yeah, like Node.js and CMake Node.js was like the default, right? Like that's how regular add-ons. Earlier team members invested time to help make CMake work, and that seems to be another fairly popular way to start to build Node add-on API add-ons. So it's kind of like if this is another way that people commonly will build their add-ons, it's worth mentioning so people are aware of it. I thought originally like this might be like a Windows specific kind of thing, but
no, it's definitely not Windows specific, and I believe even examples which this developer puts there, it's all about Linux in the end. Yeah, definitely Microsoft maintains it, but if you like npm.js also maintains by Microsoft.
Right. So yeah, so like I don't have any worry that like I was just thinking you might have I sort of tagged you because I thought you're from Microsoft, you might know more what's going on. Maybe this is something. So it's kind of like I think the question is, you know, is it like CMake and Node.js, like another way to build it? Is it mature enough? You know, we don't want to mention everything in the world if there's like 100 ways, but like if this is something which is common enough, mature enough to be listed along with the other ones, I don't have any objection. But I don't also have enough insight to say that makes sense or not. And so if you've looked at it and said, yeah, this is something it makes sense in that context, and Microsoft's committed to keeping it going, at least for me, that sounds good.
And definitely Microsoft kind of committed to this VCPKG, and something goes on like probably at least like last 6-7 years. It's not something new, and you can see we do have thousands of different packages. The question is like I guess it's not something which will be against Jeep or CMake. I would rather consider VCPKG something which kind of builds on top of CMake. It's more like CMake-ish kind of
right. Okay, so like I mean,
it's package manager, if you like. It's
it might be, you know, then like maybe what makes sense is like if you're using CMake, there's an extension called vPackage which might be useful. Like we could add it, you know, if it made sense to add a line like that as opposed to making it a separate section.
Yeah, and it's exactly, I still need to put my head around a bit, because today then you want to use Node add-on API, you typically say you have your package.json file, you bring in this new npm package with all these header files and stuff. VCPKG is effectively alternative to this mechanism. So instead of depending on npm package, you're saying that you would like to use a Node add-on API from VCPKG location.
Right. So you wouldn't do an npm build.
Right.
Yeah. How would that work then for dynamically building them? Like as you like, so most native packages, you push them up to the npm, and like when they get downloaded, if they need to be built, they get built. You can also do some pre-builds. And there's somewhere else where we talk about those pre-build things. So maybe it fits with those pre-build ways of building pre-builds if it's not something that you do through npm, right?
Right. That's what probably kind of scenario which should be there. That's why kind of, to me, was, I guess, question mostly.
Right.
I need to read the response from this developer, but my main question was about what exactly scenario. I would really like to understand this end-to-end scenario. It's great that we have this library somewhere, but how people are exactly going to use it? How we can actually make it them to kind of point them to right direction using this library?
Right, like we have this pre-build tools section in the Node add-on API repo that talks about, and even like maybe we should actually have a link to this pre-build tools from our main doc op to take a look to see if that exists. But like these are things that help you do pre-builds using CMake.js and some other things. But from what you've described, maybe the package fits in here.
Right. Because it's not clear for me like how we can build it incrementally as a part of the whole this JIP process, because it's against it, right? It's
right. Okay. So yeah, so like, yeah, in that context, it wouldn't make sense to go into the others, but it might make sense to go into this section as if you're doing pre-builds, it could fit into that scenario. So yeah, okay. So I think, yeah, it sounds like you're asking the question so that we can understand where it might fit.
Right.
Okay.
I think it's definitely kind of great, but we also need to understand that if we adopt it, we need to make sure that whatever is being offered on this VCPKG is something which we all agree upon, like that we have latest and greatest version of these files. We're not bound to specific version of node.js as it is today. Today, we look on VCPKG registrations about Node 18, but we say Node API it's version but dependent, like and so on, like.
Right, like so that's like another, that's more sort of the maturity. Is it up to date? Does it like, is it going to be, do we want to mention it in terms of, does it actually achieve what we want people to do, which is using the most recent, being able to use most recent versions and, not, like if it only works with some old version of Node, that doesn't make a lot of sense to us. Yeah. Okay. So so you're asking some of the good questions. I think that what you just said also helps a little bit in terms of, it's not like a CMake equivalent necessarily. It may be more for pre-builds, and then the other questions you asked were important too, in terms of like,
maybe it's something which can work with CMake.js. Like, so we do have today a CMake.js build system. So technically, with VCPKG is something which can participate in this CMake.js. It's kind of multiple scenarios. Like I see at least two scenarios. So with CMake.js or with pre-build stuff. Like probably two.
Okay. So in which case it might be like a, something to mention under the CMake.js. Like if you're using CMake.js, here's an additional tool that could help you in blah, 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 right? Because I think generally, like if there's tools that make sense, and it comes back to your other question, like if they're good enough and they're relevant, it makes sense for us to mention them somewhere.
Yes. But definitely it's a great development, and we're thankful to these developers taking the initiative and doing such great stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, we want to help. If anybody's trying to help people support and make it easier to build your Node API things, we'd like to help to promote those kinds of things.
And plus, I can think of about some scenarios, and this Node API has been used outside of Node.js. So, for example, today we use we plan to use it for React Native, and thankfully, it's totally different from Node.js environment. I think like using the CPKG packages in these scenarios will be kind of invaluable.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So it sounds like you've asked the right questions and asked some questions. So continued discussion in the issue. Anything else we should talk about this week on that one? Okay, I'm going to go back then to the list. Any others that we should chat about here?
We didn't get any kind of, I didn't see any feedback about these new functions I'm proposing. So is it okay if I just implement them and we see
I have them on the piece of paper I just spilled my tea on. as reminders to look at it. But this week was security releases. It was not it was a distraction anyway.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I have it near the top of my list to try and take a look. But if you want to go ahead, just you might get comments after the fact. That's all, right? Like,
yeah, sometimes it's easier to kind of just look at the code and say you like it or not, and especially if you look on some unit tests and stuff. So let me just get some running. In the end of the day, if we don't like it, we can just throw it away with code. But I will just start implementing it. And
yeah, that sounds good. And like that
right.
also gives the opportunity. Like once it's a PR, that's a trigger for many people to take a look and review and give comments. And like so, because even if we look at it, you know, where there's other people who probably won't look at it until it's a PR, in which case you can still get a bunch of good comments. So
okay. And I probably will do not in one gigantic PR, but probably kind of split up in several. So technically they can be discussed separately, and if needed, merged separately too.
Yeah, I think that's good. The smaller the conversation, the better, right?
Okay, cool, thanks.
Any others we should bring up? Okay, I guess if not, thanks to everybody for their time in coming this week, and we'll see you in GitHub and next time.
Right, see
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. Bye-bye.